All right, it's 7:01. I'm going to call to order the July meeting of the Swatara Township Planning Commission. Would you all stand and join me to say the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Chairperson Ibbotson,
Here.
Vice Chair Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Cannoli here, Commissioner Conley,
Here.
Commissioner Bear, here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of May 12th, 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And then, is there any discussion of the minutes? Okay, so that is good to go. All right, and we're going to open the floor for public comment. Each member of the public gets 3 minutes.
Thank you all for being here. It's been a while since I've been in a meeting. So 2 comments. The zoning ordinance setback. I think that what we're proposing is not big enough, and I think it should be 360 feet. I would like to be on comment saying that because that's a football field. I don't want it to affect people's houses, and that's my worry about that. And my second comment is on the Wawa that's going in by Belco. I think, if any sidewalks are not going to be put in, that they should be deferred. I'm a regular Ruby Tuesdays because they got a heck of a deal on Tuesdays, and I eat there a lot. And I can tell you that the people that walk through that parking lot are a lot, and they need a sidewalk. They need a sidewalk that goes all the way, some way to connect all of that, because I have seen things that are scary over there, and I'm hoping that that can make it better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leah Clark. I'm young. I'm a sophomore, but I was raised to speak out and speak for what I believe in. And I wanted to talk about the data center and why I think that that should not be allowed to be built in our town. I'm a little nervous. I'm sorry.
That's okay. What's your name again? I couldn't hear you.
Aaliyah.
Aaliyah.
Mhm.
Thank you, Aaliyah.
Okay. So to make my point, I wrote this on my phone. I'm sorry. Out of all the water on the earth, only 1% of that is drinkable for humans. AI data centers use about 1 million to 5 million gallons of water to cool the systems, right? This amount of water could be used to hydrate homeless people or animals that are dying in this heat, which isn't normal heat, by the way. Instead, it's being used to, to power these heartless machines driven by human greed. It pollutes the drinking water available for the people living nearby, and the water becomes murky and brown. Their water pressure goes down, which makes it hard to take showers or baths, which are human necessities. And not only do these data centers affect us, but they affect the animals and the environment as well. Farmers have reported that these data centers are killing their bees, which is necessary for our crops and our food. The humming sounds that these data centers also produce is just straight up noise pollution, which stresses out the wildlife because they are sensitive to unfamiliar noises. and it affects aquatic animals as well because it reduces the oxygen levels. The sound can alter the animals' behavior patterns and how they like mate, and it can disrupt them internally as well. The air pollution that they cause is a whole other thing. It is also proven that the temperature, the increase of surface temperature by 2 degrees Celsius, like on an average, each of these data centers do that. This is affecting climate change, which I know climate change is a big problem, and like we can't fix it, one way or the other. But this data center would be producing a lot of CO2, and I know that the meat and dairy industry does more harm, and deforestation does more harm. But this would also do harm to our local environment. But that's like not the point. I know I'm very young, okay, and I know you might not take me seriously, but I want you to take my words into consideration because this is something that I really believe in. I care about the environment. I care about the animals. I care about humans. And we deserve better, and we do not deserve this amount of pollution coming into our communities and harming people and things that don't even have voices. They can't even like fight back. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
That was a very thoughtful commentary by Aaliyah. I thought she did a nice job with that. And her concerns are valid. This data center project, again, as I said at the commissioner meeting, it's only going to be a matter of yards between the data center and the schools. Schools are Steel High Elementary, High and Elementary, Swatara Junior, and Tri-Community. We're talking about maybe the max of 700 yards down to 400 yards, okay? So those schools are majority minority students, over 80%. And those students are going to be affected by the noise levels if we go ahead and approve this for 60 decibels, okay? And then in addition to that, they're going to be downwind of all the diesel fuels. So I want to request that it's seriously taken into consideration that we're going to request that they use low sulfur diesel, okay, for their generators. And in addition to that, I have a list of other things that are pretty important that other communities have found are very necessary to protect their citizens. And also, we want to take into consideration our school students. We've got 2,500 of them that are going to be downwind of this, okay? And we don't want to degrade their cognitive abilities because of loud noises. Anything above 45 decibels interferes with learning ability. Okay. Also, too, I don't know if you've been privy to reading some of the news. In Cheyenne, Wyoming, just last week, the Meta data center there, it's the only data center in Wyoming, went ahead and sent their industrial wastewater down to the public plant, okay? And that wastewater is contaminated, okay? So now they've got a problem with contamination in the water supply, and it's could generate some bacterium that is not good for that community as well as those downstream. So I would like to also include in my request that any closed loop cooling systems that are going to be used, the water must be hauled off-site and not sent down to the Swatara waste treatment plant. We've got aquatic life in the Swatara Creek, which in turn goes down to the Swatara River, or down to the Susquehanna River. The aquatic life, of course, is very, very important. And plus, we don't want to get sued by communities downstream for our negligence. And I've got a list of I've got one for each one of the planning commissioners here of things that would be good and have been reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello. I'm Jen Kennedy. I just wanted to get on comment. I know that I've talked to Commissioner Connolly before about the ordinance for the data centers, that I do like the work that has been done to get it to this committee, and I do appreciate that. But I do think we need to consider moving forward with what we got, but we also got to consider making some changes if we can, and after this has gone through. And some of those are water protections. I'm on a well. I live 100 yards from the golf course. And just like Zoe just said, there's, I don't know what pollutions might end up in my well. So I would like some kind of protections to either test, like a baseline test, and then maybe a test like 6 months later, a year later, something to make sure my well water is still pertinent. I also would like the setback to be more than the, what is it, at 210 feet? A lot of the different ordinances, like Luzerne County has 1,000 feet, Franklin County has 1,000 feet, Carroll Township has 400 feet. So I would like you guys to consider looking at that, as well as the height of the building. Right now it's 105 feet. I'd like you to consider lowering that to 75. The berm, right now we have a 25-foot high, 70 feet wide. Other townships require 20 feet high, 15 feet high, 100 feet wide. So, and of course, the sound is a big concern for me. I mean, as Aaliyah said, the bees, I'm a beekeeper. So I'd like to keep my bees in my backyard. They're very important to me. So I'd like you guys to consider lowering the 60 to 50 dBA. And then, of course, the water pollution is a concern, and a decommissioning plan. But again, as I said, there's been a lot of great work by Zach, by Commissioner Connolly, by the township commissioners as well. So I really appreciate everything that you've done, and I'd like to see this get passed, but I don't want it to be done with what we have. So thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you all so much for your comments. That will take us moving into old business. So we have only one plan in old business. That's the Wawa Food Market and Fueling Station. Zach, would you like to take it away from there?
Sure. So Wawa Food Market is here represented by their council, also their engineering firms. Every time I see their council, I get worried if I'm doing something wrong or something, but I think we're going to get along tonight with Claudia. Okay, so they did provide an updated waiver / modification request, Madam Chair. They just submitted this a couple hours before the meeting. And if we want to go over that quickly, if you go to your staff memo, page 2, their waiver requests, number 1, number 2, we're recommending approval of based on comments from HRG. They withdrew waiver request number 3 per HRG comments. 4, 5, and 6, we're recommending approval due to HRG comments. 7 is a typical waiver for the preliminary plan. We always recommend approval of that unless it's a phased development. Number 8, they do not have to provide recreational areas as they're non-residential development. Number 9 is actually going to get changed to a modification instead of a waiver. If you go on page 3 or 4, excuse me, and then 5, the waive the requirements to provide sidewalks within the right of way and located 4 inches from the right of way line. We are recommending approval of that as long as you're recommending approval of the configuration of the sidewalk, as you can see on the screen. We have very minor comments as a zoning. I think they can be easily cleaned up with staff. The big thing is we wanted to just get your opinions on the sidewalk. I commend Wawa for listening to our comments. We did have, for the public to know, we did have a meeting on site a month or so ago with the planning commission members. We heard about their concerns about different swales and everything else, and we really appreciate Wawa's willingness to install sidewalks as we requested. So I kind of put on the screen, they prepared, I'm sure they'll talk about it. They prepared a couple slides here, but other than that, we are recommending approval of the plan tonight. We did originally include tabling the plan. However, we think it could be cleaned up at a staff level. And then I'll hand it over to the applicant, if that's okay with you, Madam President.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome.
Yeah. Good evening. Claudia Schenk with McNeese, Wallace & Nurick, here on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by Matt Mazzella with Dynamic Engineering and Eric Mounts with Traffic Planning and Design. Agree with Zach's summary of where things are at. I think we have cleaned up the waiver request. I believe we've addressed the concerns with regard to sidewalks. Agree as well that all of the zoning comments at this point are minor and are things that can be addressed after a recommendation for approval. So at this point, Matt, I don't know if you want to walk them briefly through where we're at in terms of the sidewalk solution. But other than that, we're really available to answer any questions that you have about the plan.
Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Zach did a great job. So we took a look at the latest review letters from the professionals, cleaned up the waiver letters, everything in the letters we feel at this point is a will comply or items we'll address. Sidewalk, as you all know, we met out there and kind of walked through the path. I think the path is on par with what we discussed when we were out there. We did our best to try to keep it as close to the right of way while avoiding some of those stormwater features and grading challenges that were out there, and also considering the PennDOT project that we know is future forthcoming, but also trying to keep that in mind as much as we could as well. So I don't have anything specific, but we're more than happy to answer questions that you may have since we last met or based on the latest review letters.
I
I have a comment. Appreciate the work on the sidewalk issue. It's something that is deficient in that area now, has nothing to do with you. So, you're coming in, making an improvement there. And just by the size of the property, it's a big improvement. So, it's a substantial benefit. I had pointed out before that we had 2 traffic fatalities farther down where there was no sidewalk. And over the years, sidewalk is being added really from 28th Street, and it's getting closer. And
Right.
The fact that you're putting in a large piece right there, and I understand there were the uncertainties with what PennDOT was going to do with the road. So
Right.
we're saying we want to see sidewalk, but initially we couldn't even identify where
Right.
we wanted it, and you worked with us on that, and I appreciate it. I didn't get the chance to go out the day when everybody else was there, but I did go down and talked about it extensively with Mr. Golden, and I'm very happy with the results.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we initially our plan was not that we didn't want to put it; it just was difficult to achieve. So I'm glad we could all come to a logical direction to send it. So I think it worked out well.
Yeah, and just for the public, we, looking at the plan initially, it was easy to say we just want sidewalk the whole way around.
Yeah.
But like when we actually got boots on the ground there, it was very evident that like Google Maps doesn't do that area justice as well as with those, those right of ways and the swales and the, just the close proximity to the roadways. So I appreciate your work in this. I think this looks great.
Thank you.
Madam President, can I explain what's on the screen right now, just for
Absolutely,
the
yeah,
public quickly to
please.
understand why we are recommending approval
Mhm.
of the modification. The sidewalks are usually 4 inches away from the right of way line. This on the screen in green, this is South 40th Street. This is the reconstruction project that's PennDOT's putting forth with a let date of December 2027 with a 6-year construction duration. And then what's in orange is the big change that they're having. This is Eisenhower Boulevard and Paxton Street. This is the proposed let date of January 2034 with a 6-year construction duration. In a perfect world, we would require sidewalks within that 4-inch frame. However, as you can see with the orange, they're significantly shifting Paxton Street / Eisenhower Boulevard, so it doesn't make sense. It's not even feasible, really, to install sidewalks along. So, just for the public's aware, that's why we're doing what we're doing, or requesting what we're requesting.
Thank you.
That's all I have, unless you guys have any other questions from the letter that you wanted to go over.
I did have one question related to the sidewalk. On the northern corner there, what's being done basically right in the northern corner adjacent to, sorry, you're in the eastern corner.
I know it's slow.
Slow catching up.
Yep.
Where it kind of stops where the old Belco Credit Union building is.
I'm not sure which corner we're talking about. Sorry.
Right to the right, if I can get it over here.
No, I'm sorry. The northwest.
Oh, northwest.
Sorry, over by 40th Street, where the new structure is going. So I guess it looks like there's still a gap in there.
There's a gap from the intersection to the Wawas that we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, so that I believe the conversation on that, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong, is that that parcel is not subject to the Wawa application, but the board does have authority to enact the sidewalk from the corner to connect it.
So what staff's thinking about on that one is we really need to wait until after 2034 with the reconfiguration of Paxton Street, and then the Board of Commissioners, we would then recommend later that they would make those install. We can't make Wawa improve offsite, and we don't want to require a bond or anything.
Okay, so that's a
20
totally
years.
separate parcel
Yes.
from the larger piece that's being subdivided as that
Correct.
part of that one
It
sheet
is.
plan that was added on this submission. Okay, yeah, because I guess that's the only piece in there. I understand that area is changing. It's just like what are pedestrians kind of supposed to do in the meantime until that. I don't know, but I certainly appreciate what you've changed. It's not the cleanest, but
Yeah.
I think from a timing standpoint, it makes sense what we've got laid out. And there's a few, I guess I would say, jogs and twists and turns in it, but I think it generally encourages people to go through in the direction where they're going, and it's cutting the corner not as cleanly as maybe as it could, but I think there's no point for people going out to the intersection with Eisenhower at this point anyway. So using some of your area further away from the right of way makes sense.
Yeah, I think it also, once you're on that sidewalk, you're shouldn't really feel the urge to go up the slope to the road and follow that. You're going to kind of follow that path that's been delineated at that point.
Right.
So that's kind of our feeling. Like you were out there walking, obviously, kind of starts to go uphill at that point. So you'd have to jump that hill to get back on the road, and actually you'd end up taking a longer walk if you followed the road at that point. So it is a more direct route and a safer route away from the street. So.
That was going to be my next question. So I don't think anything was shown there. I know you've also got an HOP, I believe, in process. What's the status of that, or what are we looking at there?
Correct. Again, Eric Mounts with Traffic Plan and Design. So yeah, so I guess twofold. Since we last met, we have actually finally got actual plans from PennDOT for their project that they provided. So the most recent traffic study, they are included in there, where you can kind of see exactly what's happening in this area. They are doing a little bit of work on 40th. Well, when I say a little bit of work, you obviously have the overpass plan west here over Paxton Street, but they are doing work at 40th Street and Techport as well, where they're going to reconfigure some of the lane configuration through there. They are going to provide an upgraded ADA curb ramp on the corner where the bus stop is, which would be looking at the plan here, south west corner of the intersection. And then sidewalk does run down 40th Street over the new bridge in the future. What we're proposing in conjunction with this project is to put a marked crosswalk from the driveway that would be for the Wawa there and the pedestrian facilities being provided in the sidewalk that would ultimately cross 40th Street. Given that 40th Street is the width that it is there, 4-lane cross section, we are, if the township and PennDOT are agreeable to doing so, we're proposing to put a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which is the warning devices that alert people to pedestrians. In advance of that, when somebody hits the button, it actuates the flashing lights. Presuming everyone is on board with that, we are still proposing to provide that as part of when we get to the HOP design for the project. We do have to coordinate a little bit with PennDOT there because, like I said, they are making some changes in that area. So we want to make sure if we install it, it's in a spot that they're not tearing it out in the future, things of that nature. But we fully intend to complete that coordination. Zach, if you want to be part of those meetings,
Yeah.
I think soon. We're hopeful that the traffic study is going to be approved by PennDOT on this submission. We'll be starting the design. We're going to try and get a meeting with them ahead of time to have that coordination. Like I said, they did recently provide us the plans for the area, because I guess one other update for the Planning Commission that we are changing since the last time we spoke. We are actually going to be putting a separate right-hand turn lane on Paxton Street to turn into that access point. And we actually were given the plans where we are tying our right turn lane directly into what PennDOT is ultimately going to do.
Good.
And there's a plan showing that in the latest submission as well.
Good.
Is that going to be overhead beacons, I'm guessing, with the width on that, most likely?
To be coordinated.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I guess just keep in mind from the township, that's our ownership then once that's turned over. So good.
It's something we fully support.
Yeah, I think for that type of roadway, like Eric said, with the width, I think something more than simply signing is needed. I mean, you've got a similar setup if people are familiar with, like, down on, I guess I forget what road that would be, by where the Greenbelt crossing is by the Five Senses Garden, where you've got that setup where it's flashing lights activated by pedestrians.
Yeah, and it's going to be free flow along 40th Street in the future,
Right.
even more of a reason to have that advance warning.
Yep. Okay. I think that was really the only question I had there. Then, so I think it's a good solution to, like we said, the PennDOT improvements are way out there. Ultimately, I think it'd be nice to get the sidewalk out to realigned Paxton Street. I mean, I guess just keep in mind from our standpoint as the township, just maybe keep nudging them or bring that up again as things are coordinated and, continue to see what can be done on our end if we can maybe get that accomplished ultimately. So.
Anybody else have any questions? Jerry, do you have anything?
No, you guys have obviously done a lot of work in between the time. I think our comments focused on a couple things, and one first was the convenience store / industrial use type thing. So I assume you've addressed all that. And there was a easement issue or a sanitary that was running underneath the canopy, and I assume
We addressed that. Yep.
I'm sorry, I did have one other one looking back through my notes. Looking at one of HRG's comments, there was a comment about the removal of the inlet within Paxton Street. Did you guys get that squared away, that you're not causing drainage issues?
Yeah,
Comment
so
number
that'll be part of the HOP design.
Okay.
We'll make sure that as part of the HOP design, that's resolved. So it's a will comply item. We'll make sure it's taken care of. Yeah, I think ultimately we may end up with, we'll have to run gutter spread and all that, so we may end up needing an extra inlet there or something.
Okay. Is there still going to be an agreement to discharge in the PennDOT system, or everything's captured on site?
We are ultimately discharging the PennDOT system, but we're
Okay.
meeting our rate reduction to the system. Yeah.
Thanks.
We have some nice underground basins here.
Any other questions? And then just for clarification, Zach, on the staff memo, at under suggested motions, are we moving to table or are we moving to approve with these updated comments?
We're recommending approval.
Approval. Okay.
But if you want to do,
But I was
since
going to go through the waivers first, one by one.
all the waivers and then the one
Mhm.
modification.
Okay.
Two modifications.
Which one's the modification?
The last two are modifications. The first 6 are.
Oh, the sidewalk. Yes, you're
Yeah,
right. Yep.
The ones on the letter that you've given us, the dynamic engineering, are they the most up-to-date waivers?
What's the
or
date of that?
This one's July 14th from today.
Yes,
Okay,
That's
so we're
the
going to
most
go off of these versus the ones on the memo.
correct.
Okay, great. All right, so the first waiver is for 247-17.B, number 2. And this is going to be a waiver is requested for the requirement to have an earthen berms emergency spillway for the proposed rain gardens. Due to the small size and minimal ponding depth of the rain gardens, we do not believe an emergency spillway is necessary for the safe function of the rain gardens. It is also not typical design practice to have an emergency spillway on a rain garden, as an emergency spillway is more traditionally provided for detention and infiltration basins with deeper ponding and higher storage volumes. Can I get a motion for that waiver?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And any opposed? Okay, all right, that waiver passes. All right, then we have 247-17.B, number 3, regarding emergency spillways. A waiver is requested for the requirement to have an earthen berm emergency spillway for the proposed rain gardens. I think this is exactly what I just read, but it's applying to this one. This is about emergency spillways shall be designed to prevent erosion during the 100-year post-development flow with block primary outlet structure. So this is waiving the request, and it's supported by engineers. So can I get a motion to approve that waiver?
No motion. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That's good to go. And then I have a third one, 247-17.C, number 2. A waiver is requested to permit a pipe slope less than 0.50%. The existing site is very flat, and the ultimate discharge points are very shallow. Therefore, a flatter slope is required to properly convey and discharge the stormwater runoff. Stormwater collection pipe sizing calculations are provided to confirm that the proposed and existing pipes have sufficient capacity at the proposed slopes. I got a motion to approve that waiver.
Motion.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That one's passed. We have 247-17.C, number 7. A waiver is requested to permit less than a 2-inch drop in each inlet structure. The existing site is very flat, and the ultimate discharge points are very shallow. Therefore, a drop in the structures is not feasible to adequately convey stormwater through the site. Can I get a motion to approve that waiver?
Second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? So that one's approved. And then another waiver, we have 247-20.A, number 18. A waiver is requested to permit a blanket easement for the stormwater management facilities. Can I get a motion to approve that waiver?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. This is the last waiver. This is 253-11, preliminary and final land development plan review will be separate. So a waiver is requested to combine preliminary and final land development plan reviews together. Can I get a motion to approve that waiver?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? One's good to go. And then 2 modifications. We have modification for to 253-26.A, number 1. A modification is requested to permit a blanket easement for the stormwater management facilities. I get a motion to approve that modification. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that one's approved. And then we have 253-31.J, number 1, sidewalks. This is a modification requested to permit the sidewalk to be less than 4 inches from the right-of-way line, and we just talked about that one. Can I get a motion to approve that last modification?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That one is approved.
Thank you.
And so those are all the waivers and modifications. So lastly, we are looking for a motion to approve the combined land development and minor subdivision for the Wawa Food Market and Fueling Station, as long as all comments and conditions are met.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And that is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys for all your
Thank you,
hard
everyone.
work.
Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming out.
Take care. And just for the record, those conditions are as outlined in the July 8th, 2026 staff memo.
All right, that concludes our old business for the night. So new business, letter A, we have 4921 Hair Salon. It's a minor subdivision plan, file number 2026-03R. Zach, would you like to introduce that one?
Sure. So we have the applicant and owner who is present today, Mr. Anil Nembang of Sai Saya LLC. This is a minor subdivision, the plan or a lot consolidation for 4921. They call it the hair salon plan. It contains 2 parcels. It originally contained 4, but now we're down to 2. 63014-045 and 63014-0463, better known as 4921 Dairy Street in Harrisburg. It is in the limited commercial zoning district, and the proposed project consists of the consolidation of both of those tax parcels to create a new lot. The applicant proposes a hair salon on the newly created lot in the existing dwelling, hence the reason why it's called 4921 Dairy Street. There were variances approved by the zoning hearing board in March of this year regarding lot width and lot area. So you are authorized to approve the subdivision per those variances. As usual, the various agencies, Tri-County, Fire Police, and Engineering, and my department reviewed the plan. They are requesting 1 modification and 2 deferrals. One is the preliminary plan. Second is to defer curbing along Cedar Alley, and the third is to defer sidewalks, pedestrian walkways, and bicycle paths. We do recommend approval of all those waivers and deferrals. And specific to the curbing, there's no concrete curbing exists along Cedar Alley. There are sections of rolled asphalt, and curbing already exists along Dairy Street. And regarding sidewalks, we support this as no sidewalks exist along Cedar Alley, and sidewalks already exist along Dairy Street. For the comments, we worked with Anil's engineer. They cleaned up the vast majority. So we are recommending approval of this with the 6 conditions as outlined in staff memo. And that's all I have.
Okay, great. Would you like to make comments?
My name is Tony Trost. I'm a project manager with Mellum Associates. I can't add anything to what Zach said. It was very thorough. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
What was under the Tri-County's comments? I saw there was one related to current parking provisions. What's proposed there?
The plan before you tonight is just to consolidate these lots. It's kind of phase 1 of this project. Phase 2 will be, there will be some improvements we need in terms of providing handicap access. That this actually the staff requested that be handled as a separate step.
So there's another submission coming with the land development plan.
Well, originally that was shown on the land development plan, but it was actually removed to come up with a plan that's before you now. This plan is strictly the lot consolidation.
Lot consolidation. Okay.
I can kind of explain that too, if I may.
Go ahead.
So the name's kind of deceiving. At this stage, he's very correct. It's just a consolidation plan. He will not need a land development plan. He's just doing some minor modifications to parking. He will, however, need either a minor home occupation zoning permit approval or a major special exception before the zoning hearing board. This depends on how he wants to proceed with that as a home occupation. So he will still need permit approval in the future, but not land development plans, as long as he sticks with just adding parking spaces.
Thank you for that explanation. Jerry, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think that was the majority of our question is how is it classified as land development or such and parking and some of the other components that was with more of the land development than the consolidation end of things. So if that's being withdrawn, then we really don't have any other comments.
Thank you, Jerry. Does anybody on the commission have any questions?
I guess I was just out of curiosity. All 4 parcels were originally proposed, and then they ran into complications turning it into a corner lot, and based on some of the other comments, so it was downsized to just what was needed.
Yeah.
Basically for this business.
So as usual, staff meets. We meet once the engineers review the plans, and once all staff members review the plans. They originally were proposing 2 separate lots. So these 2 here shown as lot 1 now, and then the other 2 combined. One thing that staff was really we took into consideration was sidewalks along Cedar Alley. I guess it's 50th Street, Cedar Alley.
You got the park back there.
Because there's a park back there. So we wanted to see a connection between Dairy Street and the park because it's always walked. So instead of having people walk through O'Neill's property or the next property owner, we strongly recommended curbing and sidewalk. Is this something that they weren't able to do at this point? So maybe we'll see them back a later date.
Okay.
Thanks for the explanation.
All right. If there's no other questions, we can go ahead and start looking at the motions for the waivers. So the first waiver is going to be waiving the requirement of 253-11 submission of a preliminary plan. I get a motion for that one.
Motion.
Second it.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then the second one is going to be a deferral request. So we're going to defer the requirement of 253-31 to install curbing along Cedar Alley. A motion to approve that deferral.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then the third one is another deferral. This is the deferral of the requirement of 253-32 to install sidewalks, pedestrian walkways, and bicycle paths. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. And then we are also going to move, I just need looking for a motion to recommend approval of the minor subdivision for 4921 Hair Salon with several conditions as outlined, and you're already aware of all the conditions. Okay.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you, sir.
folks.
Thanks for your time. All right, our second on order of new business is letter B, a 2-unit residential building at 63-051-111. It's a minor land development plan, file number 2026-05R. Is anybody here for that plan? You guys can come on up. Zach, would you like to explain it while they're heading up here?
Sure. I apologize if I butcher your name, sir. Constantine. Okay. Galoin. Okay, Mr. Galoin is the applicant and the owner. This is for a 2-unit residential building at tax parcel 63051-111. This is a minor land development plan. The property is located in the medium-density residential zoning district. The proposed project consists of the development of 2 twin semi-detached dwelling units with necessary stormwater management features. As usual, the various agencies have reviewed and provided comments. For deferrals, modifications, and waivers, they are requesting a waiver of section 247.14 to not create an increase in the runoff rate during the 1-year 24-hour storm event. We are recommending no action at this time. HRG needs some more information for that particular item. Second is a waiver for the preliminary plan. We support this as it's not a phased development. They're requesting a waiver of the requirements of 253.31 to install curbing along the frontage of 3rd and Summer Streets. There is currently asphalt rolled curbing along 3rd and Summer Streets to direct stormwater flow to the catch basins at the intersection of 3rd and Cumberland and below the intersection of Summers and Cumberland. We do not support a waiver of the curbing along either street. Rolled curbing asphalt is just a temporary solution. I know it's been there for a long time. However, the township and all of the municipalities would prefer curbing, concrete curbing. Regarding the waiver request of 253.32 to install sidewalks, pedestrian walkways, and bicycle paths at the frontage of 3rd and Summer Streets. Our comments with Summer Street, there are no sidewalks located along Summer Streets, therefore staff would support a deferral or a fee in lieu. We do not support a waiver. 3rd Street, there is existing sidewalk directly across the street from this parcel and at various properties along the same side of the street. We would support a deferral or fee in lieu. We do not support a waiver. It's so sporadic along 3rd Street that we would support. That's why we would support a deferral or the fee in lieu. Regarding the land development plan, we are recommending that you table this evening. There are some additional comments. Zoning comments aren't really significant. However, the stormwater management comments, there's a bunch. So we would feel more comfortable giving us another month to clean up the comments, come back and give you a cleaner plan just in case things have to shift.
Okay. Would you like to add any information?
Sure. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Michael Bruce. I'm a principal of Elsa Associates, civil engineering design firm in Hummelstown. With me tonight is Con Gallion and his son Nick, who's learning the business. As Zach mentioned, and Zach's been incredibly helpful since December, this proposal involves the construction of 2 twin detached dwelling units on one structure on a single lot. It's located between Boyer Street and Cumberland Street with frontage on 3rd Street and Summer Street. Twin dwellings are permitted by right in the zoning district, the medium density residential district. Accordingly, we don't believe any zoning relief should be required. As you can see on the site plan, the parcel is rectangular. There's 75 feet of frontage on both streets, with 150 feet between them. The parcel has a lot area of about 1/4 acre. Therefore, the minimum lot area is met, which is 4,000 square feet per dwelling. There's public sewer and public water located on 3rd Street, within 3rd Street. They're both available. Veolia issued an ability to serve letter a week or two ago. We continue to coordinate with the Swatara Township Authority, and because sewage flows go through Steelton Borough and end up at Capital Region Water, we continue to coordinate with them as well. The proposed structure complies with lot width, front yard, rear yard, side yard, applicable to this zoning district in use. Additionally, the proposed development complies with the maximum building coverage and maximum impervious coverage requirements. As you can see, the 2 dwellings share driveway access on 3rd Street. Each dwelling will be provided with a paved walkway from the driveway to each front door. No garages are proposed, so each dwelling will be served by 2 off-street parking spaces in the shared driveway. That is, the driveway will have 4 parking spaces, 2 per unit. The zoning ordinance requires an additional parking space per dwelling unit because of the tandem parking configuration, and there appears to be ample on-street parking available in the surrounding area. We propose to connect to the existing underground sewer and water, as I mentioned, as well as natural gas located within 3rd Street. Overhead electric is located along both streets. Stormwater management will be provided with an underground infiltration basin located between Unit 1 and 3rd Street, partially underneath the driveway. as Zach mentioned, we are seeking a minor modification. It's simply infeasible to collect the water required in the small 1-year storm. It's not small, but compared to the 10-year storm. We're proposing to collect and treat as much water as possible at such a sloping site. Along those lines, the site is sloping considerably, and we provide and are proposing retaining walls to accommodate that. So we made our initial submission to the township on June 9th and received the township's feedback on July 8th. We've reviewed the comments and believe the vast majority of them can be addressed through plan revisions. There are a few comments for which we would appreciate additional discussion. We can discuss those tonight or offline, whichever is preferred. So that concludes the remarks I prepared. And we're happy to try to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, the only a couple things we brought up, and I think a lot of that stuff was Zach already talked about, was the sidewalk information. I mean, they're requesting all the sidewalk waivers and or deferrals and such. The other thing was is just kind of questioning on the parking arrangement. Then you have stacked parking, and then you're allowing parking on the streets. Is that adequate enough? I mean, how have you handled that in the past? I mean, they're going to be backing out. There's a 28-foot cartway for the roadway. Again, is that adequate, or can that be re-looked at? Is that approved? That's again something that your past practice and such. So that's a little bit of a unique situation. We brought that to the front.
Thank you, Jerry. Does the commission have any questions?
What was the township's thought on that, or was there any further discussion on what was needed there for the parking?
Yes. So I did speak with Lieutenant Milstein. Parking is permitted along 3rd Street. He is correct. The gentleman's correct that we do require on-street parking if it's stacked parking in the driveway. However, Woolpert and I also had a comment that if they could slightly shift the driveway, I'm not sure if you're willing to do that. The parking spaces should really be in front of the lot. However, I don't see that as a code requirement, but it would be greatly appreciated if you could, because usually people get upset if others park in front of their property, even though there is on-street parking. So is that something you're willing to shift?
We can examine it. It's I'll just say up because it's plan view up. We'd have to probably move the entire structure up. We did spend a lot of time optimizing the grading, just to get the grading work, get the water away from the neighbors, get the water into the basin. We can examine it for sure. I'm kind of leery of making any promises that we can accommodate. Is there not also parking allowed on Summers? I know it's narrower, but it's not signed.
Parking on Summers, I don't think it's very.
Yeah, it's narrow, but it is a.
There are parking spots on Summers. Yeah, exactly. But they are meeting the code, so that's the answer to that one.
The other question I had, I guess, was a follow-up to our township engineer or the stormwater engineer's comment about the distance from the building. I guess is that what I think it was their second comment. If it's a multiple structures, it needs to be 25 feet. It looks like you're kind of limited where your options are. Is that?
No, I really appreciate
thoughts on that, or what do you?
I really appreciate you bringing that up. We don't have multiple structures, so in our opinion, there's no relief required or modification required.
Okay.
And we can't meet it anyway. So, however you want to call it, if we would appreciate a modification if the township believes we have multiple structures. I believe the definition of a twin dwelling by definition is one structure. We have one lot. So,
well, I don't know what our language is exactly. Maybe I should have clarified the comment. It said for properties or complexes with multiple structures inhabited by separate parties.
Yeah,
it might be really getting into the weeds on that, but
that's it's multiple structures. However, we'll defer to HRG for those interpretations of the stormwater ordinance.
The one final question I had too was, it looked like there were some inconsistencies there on the plan. It said you weren't dedicating anything on the cover sheet, but then it looked like you were dedicating 5-foot width of right of way. What was the final?
Well, we showed an additional right of way on both streets. We felt that was going to be required. If it's not, we'll surely take it off. I don't think we'd move it would just eliminate a line on the plan and move the front and rear yard setbacks towards the existing streets by 5 feet. So we showed it on the plan because we just anticipated it'd be required based on experience. I think on the cover sheet, maybe the note was we're not proposing to dedicate any structures or stormwater infrastructure, that sort of thing. But there's some drafting comments and some plan note comments we're definitely going to clean up.
Okay.
Zach, would you be able to get a like a satellite view of where this parcel is?
Yep.
Just so I can picture the street better. I'm trying to find it, but
Actually, let me just pull it up. Google Maps. Yeah, street view, but this gets it really close. What's
Like 523, get you close.
North Third?
Yeah. No, it's just third. No, it's not that. I think it's just third. There's a lot of thirds. There you go.
Does that help?
yeah, thank you.
And I can also do street view if it's easier.
Yeah, just can you shift to that just for everyone to see kind of where it is? Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So your proposed moved driveway would be where compared to where they already have it?
So if you look at this, really,
It's like it's kind of in the center of their property right now.
yeah. So in a perfect world, it would be shifted north because you see this property line is pretty small from the driveway. Really, it's from this right here to the northern property line. We question if a parking or a truck or any kind of vehicle could park there without being in front of the other dwelling.
Mhm.
Again, it's not a code requirement, so we'd appreciate any modifications if possible. And then if we could have two typical on-street parking spaces in front here, but
Okay, that makes sense. Does anybody have any other questions? Can I ask why shifting the driveway would have moved your buildings around?
Just between that retaining wall on the high side or the top of the plan view and the neighbor, it's just getting very tight to grade down from the wall and back up to the neighbor. We can examine it, but I didn't measure it yet, but between the southern radius of the driveway and the property, the southern property line, not southern, but down property line, there may be 36 feet now. So, and you saw in street view, people have no problem parking in front of the lot now. So even if we move the driveway, which we may, we can examine it. Not sure what it's going to do to everything else. People may still park in front of the lot. And if I may, you have there's 47 feet from the house to where the curve stops. So you don't quite have 3 in the driveway, 3 in a row.
I was just thinking, like, for the tenants' purposes of like having to stack their cars together, it's not optimal for them. So I like the idea of being able to have more parking for everybody who's living on the parcel. Does anybody else have any questions?
And as for Zach, so the recommendation is to table it. So obviously you're willing to take some looks at
Oh,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, we're not really committing or
No, we're
demanding anything tonight, so.
oh, we never
there's some
demand.
other options.
No, we never demand anything.
I
in
meant from our
township.
side, we're not telling you what
No,
to do,
no,
and you're
we're
not saying no either, because there's, there's still some time. And
no,
stuff.
and
Hmm.
we believe we can address 99% of the comments. We feel strongly there are a few that shouldn't be there. We provided a full and detailed stormwater management report and plan. Perhaps it wasn't labeled sufficiently, where the first half was for volume. You probably don't care. Second half was for rate. It was all there. Happy to point that out in the resubmission. Regardless, I don't believe the applicant is in any particular rush, and we're happy to come back in probably September based on our meeting schedules to discuss that and hopefully have you recommend approval at that point.
So what I would recommend, Madam President, is to, so he has some guidance regarding the waivers. I would request, unless you want to withdraw the waivers tonight regarding the curbs and sidewalk, they would then recommend denial of the curbing, sidewalks, and then approval of the preliminary plan, as stated in the memo. It's up to you if you want to withdraw those.
Well, there is curbing, I believe, on the whole frontage of Summers. So even though it is asphalt, the ordinance, I believe, requires just curbing. And if you put in new curbing, it has to be concrete. But if there's already curbing on Summers, I don't think the applicant is averse to providing concrete curbing along Third. I'd have to confirm that with him. I'm happy to just get back to you if you want to just table it tonight. Regarding the sidewalk, we're a little confused as to what a deferral is. Does that mean you come back in a few years and say put it in now?
Correct.
Okay.
The board has that authority. This board historically has not ever recommended approval of a waiver since I've started working here, since this board's been here.
Just in general, deferral is like, we may require this of you later.
It could be a year, it could be 50 years, it could be never.
Okay.
If the neighborhood would change and other places connect to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
To give you some context, I think, I don't know exactly how many years ago it was, but I think we tried to be consistent that instead of waiving it, it's basically reserving the right in the future. I don't know offhand, but I don't think it's ever been called in, but there's been some where in the past, I think we had started maybe taking some fee in lieu of, and then it was kind of like, well, does that really make sense? Or is it better to defer it in, say, the case where sidewalk would come down Third Street or wherever sometime in the future? So the way we've been addressing it is just simply saying it's a deferral. Nothing at this
I'll have to
might happen, but it might.
I'll have to discuss it with my client. It's just a lot of impervious that we can't capture. It's just going to go the wrong way, end up down the hill. So if he's amenable to a fee in lieu or a deferral and handle it in the future, that'll be fine. But I don't know if we're prepared to decide this minute.
Okay. So I'm comfortable with just waiting and just tabling
Okay.
everything, and then he
That's
can
fine.
submit a comment response.
Okay, sounds good.
I do have a question about the recreation fee. And a lot of these requirements broadly, and I'm not whining, believe me, but a lot of this stuff, including the whole meeting tonight, goes out the window if he puts in one beautiful home. There's no land development, there's nothing. So there is a recreation fee. We understand that it's $2,800 per unit, give or take. But for this project, it's really $5,600 per unit because we're only getting one unit extra. So is there any movement? We didn't address it in the submission. That's an oversight on my part. We've seen before townships don't bring it up, so why bring it up? Is there any movement on this rec fee? Because we can't dedicate the land, and $5,600 for honestly an additional unit seems a little onerous.
Would you like to make any comment, Zach?
Historically,
from a township standpoint.
the township has required the fee in lieu of. It's clear as day in our ordinance. The money is used to improve parks within the vicinity. We would not recommend approval of a waiver. It's nothing against your client. It's just that's in the ordinance, and we would want to follow ordinance. The board of commissioners is one of their main priorities is parks and recreation. So I wouldn't support that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
I'm confused. You said one unit?
Well, sure. Yeah, it's an existing lot. He could build a home out there, and it's not a land development, and there's no rec fee. So it's just again onerous. I don't have another word because he's getting charged for 2 units. He's really only building one more than 0 because there's no fee for 1 unit, and then he's getting hit with the fee for 2 units. Did I explain that sufficiently?
Yeah, no.
Like if it's not a land development, there's no curbing, there's no sidewalk, there's no rec fee, there's no street trees. There's still stormwater, but it's a zoning permit, a building permit. But now that we're here, because he wants to put 2 units, now there's a charge for the rec fee for 2 units rather than the one additional.
I think that's like just the nature of the project, like
Sure.
because it's one more,
Yeah.
kind of rank up a.
Oh, I get it. Yep.
I get what you're saying, but I think we've traditionally fallen with it. If it's a multi-unit, I understand you're saying it's only 2. I think we've still traditionally said, well, if it's a multi-unit, we're gonna,
Yeah, any more
fall in
than
line.
one.
Hey, I just
But
had to ask.
it's worth it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
for
sure the
sure.
numbers you said. I think what was in the memo, I think the calculation Zach had provided, it was 2897.64 per dwelling.
Correct.
So it would have been a total of 57.
2,900. Yeah. It's 2,900 makes 5,800.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I know we've had some conversations in the past because we've actually been seeing quite a few of these kind of infill developments. Some have chosen to do single family homes. Some have, like you're choosing to do multi or do a subdivision and completely separate houses off a larger parcel. But I think we've traditionally chosen to follow, like Zach was saying, what was outlined in our ordinance and with the fee in lieu of with the parks, realizing that, yeah, you don't have, land to dedicate. So it's essentially getting you into a fee in lieu of, but
Okay.
that's kind of the way we've been treating it.
Okay.
Anybody have any other questions? All right, so we are going to table this project.
Do you need an official motion?
We need
or-
a motion to table.
Sure.
Okay,
That would
sure.
be a good thing.
I'll move to table the
Awesome. And I'll
plan
second.
for tonight to address the outstanding comments.
I will second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we will see you back then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
All right. Last order of new business is letter C, the saldo and zoning ordinance proposed amendment. So, Zach, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I think why everyone's here tonight is this ordinance. So the Planning Commission in the past has historically reviewed our zoning and our saldo as they're living, breathing documents that always change with the times. So at our meeting 1 or 2 ago, this board recommended approval of a text amendment to the zoning and saldo, not inclusive of data center regulations. The Board of Commissioners then reviewed that package, and they were satisfied, to my knowledge, with the vast majority or all of them, except they wanted to add data center regulations to them based on public comments and everything else. So I worked hard with Commissioner Connolly, and we're very happy with Tri-County. I think they came up with an excellent model template. Swatara was one of the first municipalities in Dauphin County to come up with a data center ordinance. We didn't have any models to go off of. We put it in the best place that we felt map-wise, the best district, the mixed-use district we felt was the best area due to populations and a million other variables. Since I'd say months and months and months, Commissioner Connolly and I have been receiving public feedback. The public has been gracious enough to send us model ordinances from around the country, Virginia, Pennsylvania, different lobbying groups. We've been reviewing these, staff's been reviewing these, and after reviewing the Tri-County Regional Planning, we felt very comfortable with that model being a great fit for Swatara Township. Now, I'm not saying the other models are not a great fit. However, with our land distribution and the land we have available, we felt this was a really great ordinance. So I sent this to you, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks ago. I didn't plan on going through all of it, as the public has heard me rant and rave about this for weeks now. I did want to go over Tri-County Regional Planning comments, as they provided comments last night. Thank you for working overtime and sending those late last night. He's always great. He gets it before the 30 days, so I appreciate him.
Would you like Jerry to explain the letter, Zach, or would you like me to read the letter?
Sure, he can explain it.
Okay,
Yeah, he did
go
a very
ahead,
good.
Jerry. Take it away.
Okay, thank you. Yes, as Zach said, that the Dauphin County Planning Commission had their meeting last night and went over a number of ordinances. throughout the communities. In fact, I think there was 5 of them that were data center related. So there was quite a bit of action happening with this. Uh, I'll kind of back up in terms of our review, how we approached this one. There's typically 2 ways we take a approach when we review an ordinance. One is like an editorial approach, which we go through almost every component of it. And then the second one is like an overview type approach, which is more of a conceptual kind of thing. Because we have been part of the overall discussions that have been going with the discussions of your board of all the components over the last few months, and plus, as noted, when we looked at it, it did tie into our model ordinance quite well. We felt that it wasn't necessarily to do a editorial one, but there are some editorial components, and I'll bring that up as it related to it. But the main concept that we had with the comments, the Planning Commission, Dauphin County Planning Commission recommends you adopt it. However, there are some considerations you might want to move forward, or basically the township will move forward. One is that the main component is that this is, in essence, 3 different ordinances that you've thrown together. You have your zoning ordinances, you have your saldo ordinances, and then because within the actions and everything that's happening, you have a data center ordinance, which is within the zoning component. So not to say that that's wrong, that's not illegal, that's not, there are many people do it that way because of, the one advertising, one public hearing and things like that. But the only reason we brought that up in terms of this is because you are playing with many different parts, particularly with the data center type of things. You may go back and change some of the things based upon the public hearing, based upon the comments you get. Therefore, you've got to bring the whole thing back. And does that make sense to do it? You do have a lot of good things that you're taking care of within the ordinances for the other components above and beyond the zoning. So that's the only thing that we had. That's one of the main components which we had in terms of a comment that, again, these are 3. Are you sure you want to do one? Again, there are advantages and disadvantages. We just wanted to point out. In terms of like the editorial type of thing, we only brought up one kind of thing for the component of the data center ones. One of the things that you have, data centers are really a mixed art type of thing of how you want to do it. I know there's comments about setbacks and lot sizes and everything, and building sizes. You got to remember, data centers come in all shapes, forms, and such. You'll have micro ones, you'll have large ones. Everybody seems to be looking at these data centers from a large, macro, big, million square feet, but they can come in smaller packages and things like that. So whenever we mention some of the components, you do have like a static list or a static size. So it appears that you're going for a large component type of thing, but recognize you may have smaller ones that might come in that may be a good mix for your community or may not be a good mix for your community. So that's one of the things that we also pointed out, or within the textual type of thing. The other thing to think of is that you may end up also setting your goals to just allow these small ones, but a big one may want to come in because they have the right to do it. And they may look at your ordinance and say you're too restrictive. Well, the problem you always have when you have something that is way too restrictive, that means you don't allow it anywhere. When you don't allow it anywhere, you allow it everywhere. So those are the things you have to make sure that you're doing, that you have the right mixture of the things, and that's the other thing we pointed out in there. Otherwise, there's some new concerns with make sure that some of the things you do with housing is correct. There's new provisions that have come out with the new federal regulations that will be coming down your way. So make sure that you kind of feel you're comfortable with that as you're reviewing this whole process, because you may end up finding some things with the new housing law, the federal housing law. You may pass these regulations and you find yourself, behind the 8 ball because you found something may come up that may be contrary to the housing end of things. So again, those are our comments. I mean, we're not doing an editorial one. We're not talking about size, decibel levels, and things like that. We did not do that for you. We did more of the overall conceptual review.
President, if I can just continue that, I thought his review was very well written. The one thing that I really wanted to harp on is consider the amount of land that exists within the township that is available for development and able to meet these requirements at the risk of being considered exclusionary. So some of the comments that I forwarded to you from a member of the public that was here tonight stated a buffer yard of half a mile to a mile. That's exclusionary, in my opinion. I think we would be automatically challenged in court. We are not always successful at our county court level. They're usually more pro-development in Dauphin County, we found. So just things like that. I know people want large buffers. There's a reason, there's a method to our madness of why we chose 210 feet. I know people want 500, 1,000-foot buffers. However, we would greatly risk the chance of being sued and most likely losing at the county court, and then further costing taxpayers tens, if not $20,000 or more in legal fees. So exclusionary, that's kind of the word of the night, and I've been trying to harp that at public meetings over the past couple months. I understand the regulations and why people are thinking those. It's just we're trying to protect the township in every aspect. So,
Can I just ask a clarifying question? So, if if there's a regulation that is considered exclusionary, we're challenged in court, the developer would win and we would lose in court. Does that mean that development is like wide open, no conditions type deal? Like the judge could rule that they could do whatever they want and then we have no say in restrictions? Like if that would proceed.
that's my understanding. So, say we put in a rule that says 1 mile buffer, and literally no parcel in our jurisdiction would allow for a 1 mile buffer. The judge then would set an order that says do better or come to some sort of an agreement with the developer. Well, the developer might want to have a 100-foot buffer, and then we might be required by court to use a 100. Instead, we could have 210. So there's a million different variables that could happen. But yes, the judge could dictate what the buffer is without any public input whatsoever.
So doing it this way allows for public input, planning commission input, commissioner input, all the things, as opposed to just allowing a single judge
Correct.
to dictate what happens if
Yes.
we are too exclusionary.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
And one good thing, they also had a great point about noise and vibration standards. We feel that we enacted some very strict noise and vibration standards in our temple, our ordinance. But however, they do bring up good points. We do need to have staff training on DBAs and DBCs. So I'm looking into staff training. The police actually want to take the training as well. So it was a good point brought up by Tri-County. Not a lot of us know what a DBC and DBA is. We do have a DBA meter. However, if we go to court and we say, hey, we bought a meter off of Amazon,
It would need to be calibrated.
needs to be
and
calibrated,
regulated.
you need to be trained. So we are looking to strengthen our enforcement of that. So if they do come in, we receive a complaint, they're louder than normal, we'll be trained. Just like a police officer is trained in speed traps. They have to come before the court and say that I'm trained, this was calibrated on X day. We want to do the same thing. So
Okay,
public's
that's
protected.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that as well.
Is that something we would want to have township staff do, or would that be something we would want to say have the developer have a study done? You know, I'm a little bit familiar with noise, and I think a lot of those are like long-term monitoring that you need to do at some point.
Yes.
That's kind of a specialized
So you're exactly
acoustical
right.
scientist, whatever the certification is that you need for that.
Yep, and that's what our ordinance does state, that they have to provide one in the beginning, and then they'll also have to provide one at the township's discretion within 2 years. However, after that date, we feel it is exclusionary to make them do it every year or every 6 months, because we don't make any other developer do that, especially the train station here, the train tracks. We don't make them do that, and they're extremely loud. So we will be trained, staff will be trained in doing the DBAs and DBCs.
To at least do basic measurements if there was complaints to be able to
Correct.
respond to the public or to
Exactly.
at least take a snapshot of what might be occurring if people are saying, hey, it's this level of noise, you can at least say, well, here's what we're measuring.
Yep. Same thing if the generator's running 24 hours, stop. Now it's been 48 hours, stop. We have to be able to go prove that with our own eyes. We have to, set up code enforcement, things like that. So.
We would still have the option. You're talking about monitoring complaints, but if you know what happens is, I live close to a football field and they do the PA announcing, and I like listening to it, but neighbors complain because it's constantly, Smurf, Pee Wee, Pony, 4 games in a row. So some people like it, some people don't. But um, I'm sure if somebody called the police, they'd either be reasonable or the people would stop the noise.
Right.
So this kind of goes to both your points. We would have that enforcement capability. You and other staff would get trained on it. Our police would get trained on that because it's the DCA. So we already have the DBA and
Right.
we deal with noise. But we'd still be able to bring in professionals,
Yeah.
not trusting the people making the noise usually try to minimize how much they're disturbing someone. So we would have, a couple avenues open to us that if we felt there was an ongoing issue or there was, rising to the level that we feel like stops right about the time we're enforcing or investigating, maybe we do bring in, some type of professional monitoring, that type of thing, even outside of the 2 years. So obviously, in the 2 years, there would be some type of compliance because they would have to. But I just want to put that out there for the public that we're not going to kind of have the people that are making the noise decide whether the noise is a problem or not.
Right.
So that's something that we can talk about. We right now we don't have a plan, we don't have a building, we don't have noise. When we're out there, we hear traffic, dogs, we hear other things, but we're going to have to put this in perspective. And I think one of the things that the Board of Commissioners was really concerned about is we don't really want noise off the property, just like we don't want it on the other things. The train yard's been there for years. That's a little different. Like we don't want to start with allowing the noise. So I think we covered that with the the DBAs and the numbers that we have. But if there is a problem, I think we're gonna head it off. So I appreciate and you'll be taking the training.
Yes,
And then
absolutely.
Omar and then the police. So
And the police.
we'll have multiple people because what tends to happen is if there's an issue and you only have one person that monitors it and that person's unavailable, now the problem's continuing. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad that our police are stepping up for that additional training too. So thank you.
You want me to answer?
Yeah, you can answer.
So the backup generators in a non-emergency situation can only test during how our ordinance reads 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. If they're running anytime after that in a non-emergency situation, we need to be called immediately. Just as any. So just as any other generator, such as this building has, I think, 2 generators. Schools have multiple generators. If it's an emergency situation, no, the sound ordinance does not apply.
And there's a potential that during the emergency, like we just had, there's going to be multiple generators running during the duration that the power's off. So, like for this building, for example, we have things that have to run. So obviously, there's computers with information, the police side, but every light switch doesn't have to. So you're going to have emergency lighting so people can get out. Minimal every third light in the parking lot, like that type of thing. So we've talked about this before. Their emergency for them isn't that they want to run the generator. So the testing you wouldn't necessarily know. You know what I mean? Like that's really trying to thread the needle to do the sound testing when there's an emergency, when you don't know when there's going to be an emergency that they're running the. Well, part of that too is the buffers that we're requiring and the the plantings and things like that. Um, we have a generator here, and we'd prefer not to run it, but in an emergency we're going to run it, and we don't have 70-foot buffers or vegetation to block it. And the same thing would happen with a school in a residential area. We're not going to say for health reasons we're not running the generator. We're going to run the school's going to run the generator, and there's going to be, but obviously there's emission controls and all these types of things on all the other generators, so they're going to be held to that standard, plus additional things that no one else is held to. So like we're already addressing that, because of the distance and the buffer and things like that. So we don't want to get into an area that we put so many restrictions that they could, like we hear, go to court. I mean, we have a situation like that in the township. I'm sure everybody's aware of that. That people in decision making didn't basically follow, some of the rules, and there were conditions on a major building project, and that building project went to court and said that rules weren't followed, and we have now a deemed approval without those conditions. So it's a fine line to, just like you had said, 360. Off the top of my head, sounds reasonable, but um, we only designated. And I think this will help everybody, right? Zach, do you have the actual zoning map?
Sure.
Because there's some new people here tonight, and this is the dilemma we have. The law that we operate under says there has to be a area for every single use. You can't be against Dunkin' Donuts or a vape shop or Airbnb or hotels. So the township has a map that kind of like the law of the land. And if you look at the MU, and they're so for anybody that's looking at the bottom, the very bottom is a ML purple or lavender. So then there's two gray MUs, almost look like maybe the wings of a butterfly. That's all we've given. Like we're compliant. That's it. The rest of the township, they're already not eligible to put a data center in. So that's a protection we put in. But the law says you have to have some place for them to go. So this was a multi-year process, and where they went was studied by lots of people and lots of decisions, and planning commission that had different members on it, and a board of commissioners that had different people. This goes back, and to comply with the law, just because the one thing you can't say, we don't want data centers. We don't want data centers. And I'm still talking. We don't want data centers in Swatara Township. If you say that, then every inch of that map is now eligible for a data center, because the law says that you have to have a zone. And if you look at all those zones, we've heard from people that say, could you put it in the more commercial areas? Well, our township's already here. It's not a blank canvas. So you look at those areas, that's your colors starting with, the reds, the slants, the checkered pattern, whatever those violet, another red. We didn't want to do that. I don't think any board wanted to allow data centers in that massive, colorful area. So the bigger MU was already MU. Okay, so we added data center as a use in there. The other MU was a farm that the family didn't want to farm. Everybody would love for that to be a farm. It's been 20 years since it really was farmed, and it was up for development. Both of these things were up for development, multiple developments, and they have rules for them. So what we did is, with data centers being allowed, we added more rules. We made it stricter on data centers. Those same things, if they were warehousing, commercial, and to put it in perspective, uh, right across the street, very close to the other MU on that side. For those of you that haven't been here as long as me, that's the Target. That's a major shopping center. That was a farm. For anybody my age, that was a farm, and that was all developed. So things kind of fall like dominoes. Like much of this area was a farm. So what we're getting at is if we take the buffers on those two gray areas and we make it 500 feet, one of those areas is 228 acres, the other one's 170. We would eliminate at 500 feet, we would eliminate a sizable amount of the property because as you're coming in on all sides. So you would go from 228 feet to 106 usable acres. I don't think we win that in court, that we were that restrictive that we shrunk their available use. And then in the middle of it, if you have streams or some type of wetland or terrain that makes it, now it looks like we're trying to not let them have a data center because we took the area that they had, we made it really small, and then we left them with an area that they couldn't put it in. So if that would happen, the concern we have is the court would say, man, you really shrunk it down on them. Like, yeah, you got them in your meeting, but they're coming to court and they own the land and they want to do what they want to do with the land. So now it expands the other way. Yeah, this really wasn't. I don't mind when I'm done, which I'm getting close. You can ask a question, but it seemed like as soon as I started talking, you came up, and we had public comment already. So I mean, whether it was you or anybody else, like I was kind of going through this because we had other comment that I'm thinking about and that I'm answering. You know, we had some people that came out tonight that were concerned and came up during that comment time, and I think they deserve to know what we face. And you know, I'll just let it go on that right now, but. We looked at many numbers. We heard about 1,000-foot buffer. They can't build anything. Like we say, hey, you bought the land and we put 1,000-foot buffer, but it's not that big. So now you've closed it down to nothing. I mean, looking around this room, if we put a 10-foot buffer on the room, we're all in pretty close. But if we put a 20-foot buffer and then we put a 30-foot buffer, we're all standing in the middle of the room. And that's kind of where I think your comments were saying based on the size, because you have to remember, the first thing we did was not give them a lot of space to protect our residents. Now, to cut it down more, and am I correct in saying your comment said based on what we did the first time, the buffers are reasonable now, and we don't want to go too far. And this will come back to let's ask your question, where it would be considered exclusionary. And I think both of you are saying the same thing. So we're hearing it that we want to balance that out for you, but then we're hearing from you don't want it at all. And that, you know, I may personally feel that way, but I can't say that in this position. If we go that far, have we lost our right to protect you? Is basically what this is coming down to. Yeah. I think that's what Jerry covered.
I think that's what I was asking for clarification of is that I don't think it has anything to do with eminent domain as much as if we put the rules too tight, then the judge can say, I'm going to set the rules. And then the township no longer has a say, as evidenced by what happened with the Smithland warehouse.
I think on that point, just eminent domain is whenever you can take
the government
public property for public good. And in essence, I don't think anybody has gotten to the point where they think that
I mean, that example would be like for PennDOT taking the properties along the new 83 project as eminent domain.
Well, I mean, there could be cases where there's situations that are. Yeah, but I do not. We have not heard any kind of situations with eminent domain. I think the only thing that we've seen, and there's been back and forth, and I think even under at the state and federal level, was whether or not to usurp local planning authority over it. I think you'll see there was some bills early on during this whole data center discussion on taking the local land use review away from it, or even some of the permitting requirements to encourage it because it was considered to be more of a a good for economic development as opposed to land development type thing. But I think that's pretty much it fallen away. Yeah, I do not. To be honest with you, I have not seen anybody talk about something. Oh, oh, I'm sure there's lots of cases out there where they've gone and taken, like in food deserts, and allowed certain things to be done and certain things like that. I mean, it can be done, but I think it's not. It's more of a rarity than a commonality.
And
So, I mean, just to kind of bring it all back, I think that's why we're putting the restrictions that we are, so that way we can follow the law. We can give a place for every use, but we're trying to retain the right to set the rules rather than be so tight that a judge then takes over and sets the rules for us.
and
Thank
And
you.
I just want to be clear. I liked your question. I just was trying to finish out
Yeah.
my
No,
thought. So
absolutely.
yeah. And I honestly thought you were coming up to get a closer look. And what I was going to say is it was on the other side. So I was like, while I have notes and I was looking at that and I was like, yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's
no, that's okay. And I also I want to point out back to what Jerry was saying about that we take the risk of being considered exclusionary because there are such things as like micro data centers that are small in size. And so what we're saying is any data center needs 50 acres minimum size, and yada yada, all the things is that our proposed ordinance. So that's where the county's saying like you're kind of teetering the line of risking being exclusionary because you're not having set guidelines catering to a micro versus a macro data center. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yeah, as you see, kind of some of the things. I mean, as these municipalities are starting to evolve, and remember, a lot of these things, these buildings, are not a lot happening around us yet. I mean, they're happening quite a bit in Virginia. You're seeing some of these things happening. A lot of these things are speculative. There's a couple being built, and they're large ones, and they're measured effects. Of course, we're all seeing that, but we're going to start seeing the industry evolve. There's a lot of speculation out there. A lot of these people who are building or proposing these are just like the warehouse people. They're not going to be the ones operating the warehouse. They're the ones who are moving the land around and getting the approval process and things like that. We're seeing a lot of that happening with the data center people as well. As we get moving forward, these ordinances become more sophisticated based upon what the industry is meeting the demands and things like that. So, what you're doing is very, very good because you're moving forward to kind of catch up to where you want to be well protected. You first put your initial things in. Now you're kind of going a little bit more based upon the research. And even like, even though Tri-County put together the model, we're learning every day as well. I mean, we're going to be taking part in another seminar with Penn State Acoustics to determine a little bit more about the acoustics type things because sound is a very, very complex thing, and you've got like Zach said, you've got the A levels, you got the C levels. It's different at a lower pitch versus a higher pitch. You've got the banging sound versus the continuous sound and things like that. And for our people who just do land use every day, who's only worried about parking and stormwater, this is getting to a second and third level of excitement. That's it's it's getting harder and harder to do. And so, technology is moving forward, and I think the ordinances will be also moving forward as well, trying to either stay ahead of them or at least catching up to try and protect the residents. So.
And I want to recognize the commission over the past couple years, all the various members that we've had, as well as our former codes, Robert and Zach, because Robert's foresight is kind of what have started to put us into motion for protections, because he saw it coming down the pike when no one else was talking about it. So that's why we started talking about it before anyone else was talking about it. And now Zach's kind of taking that torch and fine tuning and making sure that we have reasonable protections that are going to try to avoid being on that exclusionary line.
And I will want to bring one last point up too. You have to remember, a lot of what the land use laws on everything that you're dealing with is favored towards the property owner. I mean, property rights are paramount in Pennsylvania, in the United States. So it's the right, just as the right as the person who has a single family home has the right to be in their single family home in the right district. It goes all the way down through every kind of land development type of thing. So, whenever, as you mentioned, the court cases, whenever you get into the battle of what is right, you're fighting against what the law has said. So you have to be very careful about how far you go, because again, you have to make sure that what you're doing is reasonable, because the law is written in their protection.
Thank you, Jerry. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? This is great conversation.
I did have a couple questions. So I appreciate, Jerry, the model ordinance that was out there. It looks like, at least from my review, we've largely stayed with what Tri-County has provided, which wasn't there, say, a year ago when we were trying to address some of this. So I think that was hugely helpful. I guess there were a couple questions I had where we did vary. I don't know if Zach, if you can elaborate on some of those, why maybe there were some differences. Like I said, I think 95% of it is basically the model ordinance from Tri-County, which I guess in my mind made reviewing it a little bit easier if we're saying, they obviously put some thought into what they're giving out to.
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about, I wrote it. So, so the idea was to allow flexibility within the ordinance because again, a model ordinance for Tri-County is 3 counties, and we knew and anticipated people from all over would be taking it. So the ordinance itself is to allow some flexibility and some give and take type of thing. So whenever you were looking at, you probably saw that so a lot of what we said in there is not necessarily Bible truth way to go, because again, you have to. Every community is different. So we tried to build that flexibility into it. So actually, we'd probably be more upset if you took it directly, because it wasn't 100% built to do that way. So, but we appreciate the kind words. But again.
Yeah, I think the biggest change, after discussing, I think Commissioner Connolly said it perfectly. Those 2 really small areas that the township designated as data center capable. There are a ton of wetlands and streams through those properties, both of them. So when you take, for example, the model ordinance, I believe it said 300-foot buffer. I forget.
It was 300. That was one of the questions I had. I saw theirs was 300. Ours was 210. I was just curious how we arrived.
So how we arrived at that was our current maximum is 70 foot. So we felt that we could easily defend a 3 times as much of what other potentially high users, nuclear power plants, for example, could have a 70-foot buffer max. So 3 times we felt that we would be able to defend that in court. Also, we did some calculations, as Commissioner Connolly was saying, and we can't defend a 50% reduction in property with a 500-foot buffer or 300-foot buffer. We can't defend that. To say someone told you can't use 50% of your property, so that's the main reason why the buffer yard was set to 210. We said times 3. what the current maximum is.
That helps to understand. What was the difference on, I think, the maximum height too? The building height I think was 75, and we were saying 105. What was kind of our thought on that?
I don't know off the top of my head, but our current ordinance is around that same exact threshold.
'Cause we have some hotels that are that height, I think.
Yes, yes.
I think we reduced the 120.
Yeah, right. It's currently set. I think our cap is 120. However, we reduced it to 105 because, like you said, other buildings in Swatara Township are around the same height. So we felt that was more appropriate. Any other specifics? I don't have the compare and contrast version.
I thought about running it through AI, but then
You could have.
I just put them side by side on my computer.
Yep.
The other one I was curious too was the access, and maybe that goes to some of the restrictive piece too. Theirs had in access from an arterial or collector roadway. We took that out.
What section is that?
5.
Section 5. Okay.
We say it shall be demonstrated there's an adequate second means that they had a point A and a point B, and we took out A and just.
Section 5. Section 5 on our sections.
I'm sorry, I'm way down in the data center ordinance.
Okay.
Section 17, D5.
D5. This one?
Right. So ours doesn't say anything about access from an arterial or collector roadway. The Tri-County did.
We don't have any other regulations that I know of that state that in our saldo. So I believe that's why we took that out. We didn't want it to be so particularly
with a specific
type
of roadway.
Right.
And I think part of that played into the fact that we had already limited where they were.
Yes.
And I don't know if Jerry thought about numbers, but the one thing that kept coming back to me is we're talking 170 acres and 220 acres. If we wanted to have bigger buffers or more rules on how you get into the property, we probably would have had to pick a larger area, and then we would have crossed out of the specific boundaries. So it would have been pointless of us to just say, we're going to give you X amount of like we did it by the property that we thought was reasonable. And I think like if we would have went, we're hearing that individual projects are on 800 and 1,500 and 2,000 acres. Well, we've already eliminated those projects. So we don't want to, you know what I mean? Like we didn't want to basically, whether we felt like we wanted any or none, we weren't going to put ourselves in a tighter situation. And when you do the calculations on the reduction because of the 210 buffer, it's a very significant amount of land. And because it's not a rectangle or a circle, the shape of these really starts to push in at different spots. So, for open space and green space, for example, we carved out, I think on both of these properties, 50, 60, maybe 65 acres that they can't do anything with. And that's not what we have on our other uses, so we don't,
Kind of the trade-off.
yeah. And I think like we would have liked 300, but we were afraid if we said 300 and the pushback in the court ordered us to cut it in half. Now we're at 150. So we thought we'd go farther to the 210 and hope that, nobody like.
Sorry, on the other end of that, not to interrupt, but there is smaller ones where they send out Connex boxes pre-built, and so you're able to go around the commercial rate and therefore superseding any kind of regulations and also running like about a 20 to a 50 KA, ability of generating your own ability for AI mostly, and it's subcontracted out, and then after 5 years you get a 50K check. So
Okay.
just to focus on.
I'm just gonna call order because they were in the middle of a conversation. So I'm gonna let them finish this conversation.
That's interesting, but we're kind of on the dimensions, but thank you for.
Go ahead, you guys can continue.
No, I think
because what was happening is advocating from the commissioner spot and the oversight, we were going with, can we do this or is this possible? I don't want to say, we're in a public meeting, so I don't want to say where we started, and then we were coming back to where could we get the wins for our residents? Where could we get the protections for our residents that we decided? And I'm just going to say right now, this is a hot button issue. This board, us, and the Board of Commissioners, as far as I know, is the only place the protections have been put in for citizens. We haven't gotten it from the federal government. We haven't gotten it from state government. We haven't gotten it from, county, a model ordinance, but it's not there. And these were two private properties. So, like, that's our role, is to protect our citizens, number one, while complying with the law and giving people the rights that they have. But, I don't want to speak for everybody. I think we all feel that the protection of our citizens overrides the rights of business, any business, whether it's data center or not. But we just got ourselves in this thing was coming quick. The model ordinance came at a perfect time for us. It wasn't there when we started this. The model ordinance didn't exist, and then when we started to work on this to add more protections, we had lots of people who then joined in and started coming to meetings and said, why don't you follow this model ordinance? Well, the model ordinance, did that come out in April of 26?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Okay. So we were doing this in March of 25. So there was no model ordinance. There were no rules or guidance. And from the very beginning, I think we really took the position to protect our residents. And, the map that was up there shows that. I'm hopeful that we don't get challenged on the map or the zones. But we went with it. I mean, we had we had different views on what we were going to do. Everybody did how we were going to do it. But I think if you looked at the progression collectively, we put ourselves in a really good spot. So it's never going to be perfect for the people that don't want it. And I certainly understand people that want more and more and more. And we're on some things. We might be racing the clock, and I think you had said that we could look at, obviously we'll look at these things down the road. I mean, we were going to be doing subdivision and land development updates this time of year, even if data centers didn't exist. Like that's going to happen again and again and again. So this is a big step for protecting our residents. If we see that there's one or two more little steps down the road that we need to take, I think we're open to that. But I just appreciate the work that everybody's doing. We're not in the best spot, but I want to be clear that I can't think of anybody else who has put in any protections at any level. And I think a lot of us thought something was coming, possibly through the budget process, through all these amendments. And there's a lot of things we don't control. We have to operate under the MPC that comes from a higher level of government. And when we comply with it, people are unhappy, but, we try to make the best of it. So.
And the biggest complaint that I've received the past year is, we need this massive buffer, even 300, 400 feet. And for some communities, that makes sense when you have a rural community that they have 500, 600, 700 acres of land. Then you can do a 500-foot buffer that's not exclusionary. So hopefully that made sense tonight to the people who want a higher buffer. We just have those tight areas that the board chose. So.
Another question I had was related to the parking. So I think we based it's going up actually to miss that question I had. Number 2, yeah. So we based ours on 8,000 square feet of floor area. I think the model ordinance had it on employees. I guess, are we confident that the square feet of floor area is a better measurement and not employees? Like, I thought these things are supposed to be fairly low employee numbers. What was the thought behind the difference there?
So yeah, in my perfect world, I would actually get rid of the employee parking scenario for every kind of use. With my research and a lot of ordinances that I reviewed, they do not include employee parking spaces because the uses or the amount of employees per building is very low. So we felt that was adequate for any data center use. I don't know if that makes sense.
I guess are we concerned we're making them have too much parking?
Too much parking.
Right. If we're going with the square foot of floor area, like should we be going with employees to get less parking?
So this would actually be a probably question for Jerry because he's the guru who came
Yeah,
up with the 8,000.
that's the way that was our thought, because these things are going to be whenever the things that we've seen or the the research we've done is these things could be larger and by like a warehouse situation it doesn't really fit. It's more of a whenever they come in, the real disruption, so to speak, in terms of activity and traffic is going to be when they're being built. But once they get up and running, then there's only, I wouldn't say a skeleton crew, but there's a minimal crew that's there pretty much 24/7 operating these things. The only kind of funky parking thing that we have seen or been told about is the loading areas for these because these are very secure locations. They basically have the UPS guy or whatever come in and drop it off. They want to have a place where they can drop it off easily, but then not be able to get access to the rest of the building because they're very, very secure. There's banking data, there's medical data, and everything else in these things. The only really kind of thing that they really kind of warned us about in terms of parking is having that kind of access and having that kind of ability to let those people get in and out of. In terms of the parking, like I said, these units may have very few people. I was on a tour where we visited one, and it was a 500,000 square feet, and there was 10 people there, and so they had a larger parking area, and it was pretty empty. So that's what our thought rationale was, and we've seen that thing was doing that. That may not be applicable to all the situations, but again, that's kind of how our approach was for that because it's based upon how they're staffed.
Was it employee based only? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was. I think it was
Only employee.
Yeah, and and Zach, you're right. It is very hard to do that because it's you're kind of trusting them to tell you
Right.
what it would be, and a lot of these things are going to be flex space type of things. So one may require 15 employees, another one may only require 2. So whenever they come in with 2 at the beginning, the front end, and then later on it's 15, then they got to scramble to find
Right.
they may be in violation. So it is kind of hard. That is kind of a component that is really. But I think if you told them to put in 15 parking spaces versus 30 parking spaces, the amount of money they're investing in this thing, they won't really care too much about that component. I don't believe.
I know I didn't answer your question too well. I'm trying to.
I don't know if there
remember.
is a.
It's just parking is so hard.
I know we've had conversations in the past. I know Steve.
Oh yeah, we hate lots of parking.
Jack,
I mean, you're going to be paying for stormwater. You're going
right.
to be paying
It's
for
something
heat
that
islands.
affects
You're
all
going
of us with our stormwater.
Yeah,
that we pay every year.
we're certainly not ones to encourage above parking.
I don't know if there is a magic answer or how confident we are that saying 8,000 square feet is the number that gets us to where it needs to be versus getting more than we need. I don't know if there's a better.
If I remember correctly, we might have matched the warehousing parking. I just don't remember this particular one. It might have been the same parking as warehouse and distribution with low employee. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't have a perfect answer on that one. I don't remember.
The only factor I think that we probably didn't mention is, and Jerry addressed it, the fact that they run 24 hours. We felt that there would be like the shift change. You know what I mean? It's like so like you're saying, you don't know, but you have so
Like
many
you said,
there,
kind of
so
in-
many
right.
leaving,
Right.
and you know how to is there something going on where they're having a meeting and they need everybody to stay?
Right.
So I think to be honest with you, one of the areas I left up to Zach and legal, there was a million combinations, and I don't know that we knew the answer, so we left it up to what we thought was going to be the best. And when I got the total package, I saw it just like
it was comparable to other.
Yeah. How do you come up with 8,000? Does that
Right.
get us?
Yeah, I don't.
Well,
You know, and we saw that if you remember years ago, the mall had some crazy based on.
Well, you
areas.
look at the site that was here. I mean, they carved out a 2-acre site for a Wawa out of an existing parking lot
Right.
in a commercial building.
Yeah.
There's obviously parking that's not being
And
utilized.
we had a shopping center that had 5,000 parking
Right.
spots,
Mm.
but you couldn't find one in, around the
Yeah.
holidays. You couldn't
Yeah.
find a
It's all
parking spot.
based on
Yeah, and that,
peak
there
hours.
were no Walmarts then, there were no Targets, and that's where everybody went. So,
Yep.
That's kind of a changing, dynamic with everything. You I don't know if you'll ever get it right.
Yeah, exactly.
No. Another question I had was the model ordinance, I guess, had some lighting requirements, and ours for the proposed one dropped all of that. I guess, were we saying our lighting ordinance was sufficient to manage that?
You're exactly right. Yeah. So our current SALDO requires a photometric plan. So there's already non-residential and residential rates. They can't go beyond the border. So there was no point of adding an additional regulation.
I think we talked about that the last time we were reviewing
Sure.
this plan as well.
And I think we had, so I know we had talked a lot about the noise initially, but we had initially, we have in our existing ordinance a table, but it didn't address, it only addressed DBA.
Correct.
The numbers themselves are fairly similar, I would say. But yeah, it didn't address the DBA. So that's why we're removing that and replacing it with the one from the model ordinance.
Yes, correct.
Or
And
one that's
I really,
very similar.
I really liked how they broke it down as well. I thought
We had a lot more holidays and
Yeah.
some, I guess, bigger gaps in what somebody could theoretically produce.
This is neater as well. It's
Yeah.
easier to read, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, one other thing about the noise type of thing. When we were talking with some of the people who were, kind of to rely on to help us with. One of the things that they indicated to us, and we kind of fell too, is some of the ordinances you see out there will prescribe how to meet these requirements and things like that. They'll set up type of things. But it goes back to the point we made earlier. You have to be a very sophisticated organization in order to monitor what they're doing that way. Again, working with Penn State Energy, they kind of indicated that they felt that the best way was to set the levels and let the industry decide how to get there. And so whenever we did ours, that's what the kind of the concept too. We said, here's the levels. Now there couldn't be debates about the levels, and I think that's what's happening now is that levels too high, too low, based upon your community. But I think that was what our approach was: set the levels, let them get to it. They know how to do it. You just know how to figure out how to measure it.
Yeah, and our solicitor, Scott Weiland, said at our meeting a couple of meetings ago that 60 is normal speaking voices. So, not that I didn't believe him, I checked it myself, and he is correct. That's normal speaking voices. So that's something to compare it to.
Yeah, I know the basic, just from being involved in highway noise mitigation, it's up, I think it's in the upper 70s before you consider a noise wall.
Okay.
I forget the exact numbers. There's actually a pretty cool little chart that I've seen already at some public meetings, but don't know offhand. And then this has nothing to do with the noise ordinance piece. I think all of our back and forth from the previous discussions on the other pieces had gotten addressed. I don't know, had that figure one, I think I had sent you a couple from the model. Had that gotten lost in the shuffle somewhere? I think it looked, the one Tri-County had looked a little different than this. I was still concerned that we were basing things off of the setback from the roadway versus using the distances from the center line of the roadway.
Yeah. No, it didn't get lost, and I apologize for not getting back to you. We just decided to go with this figure because the main purpose of this, as we stated before, is code enforcement.
Right.
So, in the code enforcement aspect, I spoke with the police department because they actually deal with this a lot too, as well. We figured this would be the easiest to monitor on in the code enforcement aspect. Now, I completely understand regarding different speeds and everything like that. However, we felt this was the best for our aspect.
I guess the one that I saw in the model ordinance, I think that I had passed along, was simply based on set distances off of the roadway, not off the
center line of the
Correct.
Yeah.
So say like for an arterial, it was based on, a distance. For a minor arterial, it was another distance, and then the driveway was the only one that was 10 feet. I'm concerned that we're shorting ourselves for a public roadway, saying it's 14 and a half feet, because that's based on the speed. I think we should be at the distance of, I think, what do we have listed in there? 70 and 75 and 40, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be off of those numbers versus the 14 and a half feet. So that distance should be off the center line then, because it would provide a larger distance when you figure most of our roadways are, say, at most 12-foot lane, 10-foot shoulders at 22 plus, I guess you'd be, yeah, be 36 and a half versus 40 on a side. But I think for your larger public roadways, I think we're shorting ourselves with the 14 and a half versus what Tri-County had shown, basing it on a true triangle, 75 and 75 off of each center line. So
Understood.
that was my only comment there.
Okay. Maybe that's something we could look at in the future.
Any other comment? Question? No? Okay. All right. So looking, it's just one motion to approve, correct? Send back to the
Yeah,
Board
to
of
recommend
Commissioners.
approval of the ordinance.
Okay.
To the board.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to recommend the Saldo and zoning ordinance proposed amendment as just detailed, and send it back to the Board of Commissioners for final approval.
Can we amend that at least to say, look at that site triangle issue?
You can. I mean, we're still recommending that site triangle for code enforcement purposes. I would recommend maybe we can work together on our next round. But you can include any comments you want.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we can definitely put that in there as a note to go back to the Board of Commissioners, as well as if they wanted to take a look at the parking. I know we were kind of deliberating about the parking spaces.
Yep.
All right, so Chad, would you like to make the motion with your added note?
Yeah, I'll
comment?
move to recommend approval of the proposed ordinance with those two comments, I guess. The other ones were really more question than necessarily expecting necessarily any changes.
Okay, I'll second that.
So for discussion,
So-
the one is look at the
The
parking.
parking, whether it's based on
Employee numbers versus square footage.
or square footage, correct.
And
the clear
then-
site triangle.
And then the clear site triangle. And I guess specifically would be for public to public, I think is the piece that is being shorted on
Public to public. Okay.
public to public. I think it applies for public to private, but public to public, I think it ends up shorting what we want from a site distance.
Understood. Thank you.
I have a question. So these are comments for future changes? Or because we've already advertised,
Right.
and if it goes back to the Board of Commissioners and we change it, don't we have to advertise again? And
I don't think we're recommending changes. I think we're just recommending comments
that's what I was-
for,
The
for
text
future.
how does that work, or can you elaborate on that process?
Yeah, so we have a public hearing set for August 5th. We're looking to expedite the process before any data center regulation or proposals come in,
Right.
if any. So staff is recommending expediting that. So if we would change any text, the board would say, hey, you know what? Yeah, he's right. Let's do one per employee or something like that. Then we would have to re-advertise. So I think if I'm hearing you correctly, this is for comments to address at a later date, at a later text amendment package.
Correct. I would say at earliest convenience. I understand the process of trying to get the large, and I guess maybe that goes back to what Jerry was saying, coupling everything.
Yeah.
right. And then maybe we can break it out in the next round.
Yeah,
We attach these to get the protections.
Well, what I've seen is whenever this is the case, when you have so many of those ones, the commissioners will go and they'll they'll basically order another ordinance to be written with just those
Mhm.
components, and it'll come behind. So you could do it again if you wanted to,
Right.
but you got to pay. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the process of that people have taken. And I think as Zach and someone else have mentioned, maybe as Zach has mentioned or someone else has mentioned, typically before you used to be able to take the ordinance and have it and then kind of tweak it, and then everybody looks at it and says, oh yeah, that's minor. But I think there's been some recent court cases that said, changing of a comma almost changes it to go back. So they've been very, very strict about having modifications. So, if it was up to the discretion of the ours is more of a bigger one. If you decide to split it out, then you're going to come back and do whatever. But if you're looking at these individual components, it's my understanding the board could say, yes, we're going to pass this, but we're already going to push it forward to an amendment to have it reviewed and go back through the process at a later date because you don't want to mess up the package.
I just wanted to be clear, so I think that's the way you
Yeah,
addressed it.
that's my intent.
Yeah,
I understand what we're trying to do here from the larger perspective, but I would say at some point, hopefully, to address those two then.
Understood.
So
Alright, so
I would move to recommend approval of the proposed amendment that we're reviewing tonight with those comments to address in the future.
Okay, great. And I will second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that has passed and can go back to the Board of Commissioners. Number 8, other business, there is nothing listed. And number 9, other business not being heard tonight is 1065 and 1099 High Spire Road. It's a minor subdivision plan, so we should plan to hear about that in the next meeting.
As
perhaps?
expected, I figured this meeting would be long, and I
Mhm.
didn't want to have a 10 o'clock meeting for you guys. So
Okay.
we're still reviewing that
Yeah.
as well.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You did.
Jerry's on it. Thank you.
You're always before, always.
I'm just curious with the title CR. Is it commercial and residential? Or
Good catch.
Is it a typo or is it?
It's a typo. It's a C. It's a C.
It's a C. Okay, great. Thank you. And then number 10, commission member comments. Vice President Martin, would you like to go? And then we'll just go down the line.
I don't have any further comments at this time.
Okay. Commissioner Connolly.
I just want to thank everybody that's been part of the process. I mean, we've been hearing from residents, submitting information. It definitely is a hot topic. A lot of responsibility for the Planning Commission, the Board of Commissioners, staff, and our solicitor's office have really put in a lot of time on this. And this isn't something where you wanted to lead the way, to be honest with you. We ended up leading the way afterwards, but we looked at everything everyone else was doing all over the place. And so many people sent things to us. And I think that I'll wrap it up by saying I think the model ordinance was a blessing to let us know that we were on the right track. And it came at a really good time where we had to make some decisions and really be out there on our own ahead of every other municipality. And I think that gave us the confidence because I think we've been making the right decisions right on through. So I appreciate everything everybody is doing on this situation. Thank you.
Absolutely.
My only comment for all those watching at home is that our Family Fun Day for the township is this Saturday. It's a really good time. So come out with your families and have some fun.
No, the only thing I have is John. Thank you for getting the
Yes.
video stuff working and
Thank
the audio
you.
stuff working. And the girl who left, she did a nice job coming up, and she was scared, but she came up and gave her opinion.
Yeah, she did good.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was awesome. Commissioner Dale.
I just wanted to comment. We had a crowd tonight, which was very nice to see. I'm glad to see the resident participation. So I think we all can say we greatly appreciate that, and that's a nice thing to sit up here and see engagement. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right.
If I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. I'm sorry I didn't
Don't
give you
mind
a,
if
I
you-
didn't give
I
you a
know I
member
talked a lot
comment.
As before I mentioned that there's the new housing act, and kind of to try and stay ahead of that curve, I'll be sending out to Zach and all the municipalities. We're co-hosting with Cumberland County that act contains and what might be in store for local municipalities as they try to kind of navigate that. I'll send, like I said, I'll send it to Zach. It's a virtual meeting. It'll be on August 5th at 12 p.m. So there'll be a link. Again, I'll send it to Zach and he can send it to everyone. It's open to the public, but it's mainly towards municipal officials to try and give them a first understanding of what's all might be in there, because there's a fair amount of things about accessory dwelling units and manufactured homes, things that may come down from the federal level to the municipalities in fairly short order. The second thing is I want to thank Swatara Township and the supporting our active our actions towards our comprehensive plan. Zach, we contacted the township to see if we could use this room for an upcoming public information meeting, and we were the 11th, I think. I don't have it here, but we're inviting all the local zoning officers and planners to come in and talk about what they can get out of a comprehensive plan, particularly on the county level, so that it doesn't become the people who use it are pretty much the people who are in this room. So we want to make sure that, like the Zacks and everyone else in the county who rely on something like that for 10 years, it's really worth it for them. So we'll be having this meeting coming up, and we'll probably have a number of them with them. But again, I want to thank the township in advance for that, allowing us to be here.
Thank you, Jerry. All right. With all of that being said, thank you all for coming out tonight. I hope everyone has a safe journey home. And we are, can I get a motion for adjournment? Anybody?
It looked like you wanted
All
to say
right.
something.
I am
Motion?
going to okay. I'm gonna thank you so much. All those all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed to adjourning? All right, sounds good. 9:18, we're adjourning.
Thanks, Megan.
Your next